Now what we're going to do is it's open mic. If you have some Howard poetry with you and you want to come up and read it, please do. I've got a poetry book, a Howard poetry book, that is available only here at the Robert Howard Museum. And there's a young man back there with his hand up.
Y'all got the Marching Song of Connacht in that book?
Well, let's go see. Hopefully there's more than one poetry book here. This is the volume that Paul Herman put together for the house, and it's got 100 Robert E. Howard poems in it. It's very nice.
Bound to be one in there I can read.
Yeah, but the other one.
Anybody else have a Howard poetry book?
Yeah, I got the same.
Would you like to come on? You want to come up? Ron, you've done this before.
He's there right now. Oh. I can kick him off stage if you want.
Yeah, come on. We got two guys going. All right.
Desired or allowed? Both.
It has to be Robert E. Howard poetry.
Okay, I'm gonna. This is from the Rhyme of Salem Town and Other Stories. That was at the foundational. That was at the foundational desk, and it's got some different stuff in it. And I found something that I thought was pretty cool. But before I read it, I want to give you a little background. It's called "The Cells of the Colosseum," and it's written from the point of view of a man about ready to go out to his death. You know how they fought to the death in the Colosseum, and this is what's going through his mind at the time. The cells of the Colosseum. Across the walls a shadow falls, the dreary night drags on and on. The horses stamp within their stalls, I'll ride no more to meet the dawn. Beyond this wall a sleeping Gaul mutters and tosses in his sleep. Before him maybe I shall fall, or in his heart my blade bring deep. The silence falls along the halls, the lions mutter in the gloom. How time alone the hours crawls like some great sluggish worm of doom. My heart beats fall, a striking maul, because my thews are hard and strong. Within the hour I must fall to meet the bloodlust of the throng. Along the halls a trumpet calls, the red arena glimmers nigh. Thor, let me mock these fools of Rome and show them how a Goth can die. Thank you.
Why don't you announce who you are and where you're from?
All right.
Tell them who I am and where I'm from while you're at it, because I didn't do it.
I'm going to say his name is Charlie Goodall, and he is from West Siempre, Wyoming.
How'd you know?
I've always been lucky that way. Right. So I am Brad Ellison of Austin and other parts unknown. Now what I got here is one of my favorites on a subject near and dear to my heart, lycanthropy, of John Kane. Up John Kane, the gray night's falling, the sun's sunk in blood and the fog comes crawling. From hillside to hillside the gray wolves are calling, will you come, John Kane? What of the oath that you swore by the river where the black shadows lurk and the sun comes never, and a shape in shadows wags its grisly head forever? You swore by the blood crust that stained your dagger, by the haunted woods where the hoofed feet swagger, and under grisly burdens misshapen creatures stagger. Up, John Kane, and cease your quaking. You have made the pact which has no breaking, and your brothers are eager their first to be slaking. Up, John Kane, why cringe there and cower? The pact was sealed with the dark blood flower. Glut now your field and the werewolf's hour. Fear not the night nor the shadows that play there. Soundless and sure shall your bare feet stray there. Strong shall your teeth be to rend and to slay there. Up, John Cain, the thick night's falling. Up from the valleys, the white fog's crawling. Your four-footed brothers from the hills are calling. Will you come, John Cain? Next.
Real quick, Jake.
Just turn the power button there. And then the camera in the corner. Just kind of drag it up, and there we go. No problem.
Check. I'm Jake from Marietta, Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be reading Swords Glimmered Up the Pass. Everybody ready? Swords glimmered up the pass, fringing the grim, dark mass. There was blood on the grass, red blood. But the flood, far below, lumbered on the east and the dawn. When all men are gone, shall not they, hill and stream, as today, gleam and dream? Forgetting forever in majesty still, that men climbed the hill or died on the river. High on the great black crags, like hags, brooding for death and slaughter, we waited, with the thirst of our blades unsated, and below us rippled the water. We too, you and I, last to die. At bay, there we stood, and the wind in our hair shook the iron-clawed brood of the black eagle's lair. They came in the flame of the thundering dawn, driven and drawn by the spat of their hate and the fate of their lust for the glimmering dust. They dreamed they could hold the traitor of gold, the breaker of thrust, and we laughed in the bend of a curse that our blades, they were the virgin of rust. Then from his bed the great sun clombered red. His gleams lit up the lances and the banners of the foe. The cohorts clambered, sealing our doom beyond repealing. Behind our borders kneeling, he hurled out lead below. Many a bastard there of that dark band clutched with a nerveless hand the mocking air. Man after man, one by one, dropped in the eye of the sun to the crack of the ball, reeled from the somber cliff, grim and stiff, and the river below drank his fall. 2 men, and we laughed, and we swore. In the fringer of the rifle smoke plume, I guess it's a misprint. 2 men, and we laughed at the roar of a whole army bringing our doom, and our rifles stammered and yammered, carving the air with red laces, till our powder was burned their faces. And as up to our muzzles they clambered, you rose and you jeered. In the beard of our foes, you hurled gold, and some of them clutched it with screams, and some in the clutching grew cold, and you roared to the horde, here's the price of hell's thunder, and the leap of your sword rent a bosom asunder. I swung up the stock of my empty gun, and the crash and the shock broke the brains out of one. Then smoke veiled the sun, and blood, cliff, and rock. Reeking red carpet we made as we laid, with the crash of my gun and the slash of your blade. Bullets jerked at us, knives stung, sword points dirked at us. Gun stock swung, like reddened leopards we sprung, and they forced us back to the lip of the pass that over the river hung. We were blackened with powder, red with blood. Ever louder we heard the flood. Your blade was a shard on a battered hilt. Your grip slipped on the blood you spilt. From my rifle the splintered stock was rent, and the barrel was twisted, burst and bent. And the last charge came, fierce faces rose to go blank under our last great blows. Flame in our faces waved its sheet, and we felt the gulf yawn under our feet. Roaring our final oaths, we fell and crashed together into hell. Thank you. You like it?
Oh yeah. I heard that one before.
Thank you.
That was good.
Wayne Todd from Evansville, Indiana, and I'm going to be reading A Man. I tore a pine from the mountain crag, I plunged it into the sea, and I wrote my name across the stars for all of eternity. I rocked the world with my chariots, I shook the seas with my pride, and at last I looked at my name in the stars, and I laid me down and died. The morns gave birth to the surging years, year rose on dying year, but ever above the flaming stars my name stood blazing clear. And the people came and the people went, in their fetters and chains and bars, saying, I wonder what unknown man those strange words wrote on the stars.
Thank you. I think you should win the award for the most uncomfortable hat. I'm Ed, I'm from Houston.
The coolest hat.
But as I read The Black Harps in the Hills, I'll attempt to invoke the spirit of a Celtic warlord. Let Saxons sing of Saxon kings, red-faced swine with a greasy beard. Though my song the Gaelic broadsword sings, the pibroch skirls and the sporran swings. For mine is the blood of Irish kings, that Saxon monarchs feared. The heather bends to a marching tune, the echoes shake to a marching tune, for the gale has supped on a bitter bread, and followed the ghost to the mighty dead, and the blue blades gleam and the pikes burn bread in the rising of the moon. Norseman, Reaver, or the red-haired Dane, Norman, Baron, or English lord, each of them reeled to a reddened rain, drunken with fury and blind with pain, till the black fire spilled from the Gaelic brain, and the steel from the broken sword. But ne'er the chiefs in deaths lay still, never the clans lay scattered and few. But a new face rose and a new voice roared, and a new hand gripped on the broken sword, and the fleeing clans were a charging horde, and the old hate burned anew. We have not won, and we have not lost, fire in Kerry and Fermanagh. We have broken the teeth in the Saxons' boast, though our dead have littered each heath and coast, and by God we will raise another host, Slanche Erin Gobrech.
Charles, Philadelphia, try to keep this as short as my nerves. Road Kings. When I was a fighting man, the kettle drums they beat, the people scattered gold dust before my horse's feet. But now I'm a great king, the people hound my track, with poison in my wine cups and daggers at my back. Gleaming shell of outward lie, fable the right divine, you gained your crown by heritage, but blood was the price of mine. The throne that I won by blood and sweat by Crom I will not sell, for promises of valleys filled with gold, or the threat of the halls of hell. What do I know of cultured ways, the gift, the craft, and the lie? I was born in a naked land and bred in an open sky. The subtle tongue, the Suffolk's guile, they fall when the broadsword sings. Russian and die dogs, I was a man before I was a king.
Gosh, I don't have a voice for this. So, one of the things we did that you're going to see when you see the new collected poetry, we let Bob decide what goes first. Because Bob had a way of picking the things he thought was important, the things he put in collections, the ones that he thought were his best works. And we let him pick that stuff, just for a change of pace. So, this is the first poem out of his Singer in the Shadows collection. I'm going to read this from the typescript, the original typescript. So it's a little, pardon me if I stumble when we get through this, but Zucala's Hour. High in his dim, ghost-haunted tower, Zucala sits alone, like a spider, spinning his webs of power upon his pale moon throne. All through the long star-spectral night, the tower knows no tread, save for sometimes the eerie light swift footfalls of the dead. He does not sleep, and his eyes are deep as the seas of Fagare, and he moves his scepter but to sweep the dim stars out of the sky. And when the wind is out of the east, and the mid-moon's silver gleam makes pale the stars like ghosts at feast, Zucala sits a dream. But when the wind is out of the north, and the gray light lifts for morn, Zucala harries his sendings forth to know if a child be born. And the babe that is born in that mystic hour, in the time of the paling light, is cursed with the gift of Zucala's power, the gift of second sight. For an unseen web from the misty shores upon his soul is thrown, and though his brothers may number scores, that babe must walk alone. He shall walk in lands that are dim and gray, yet never shall he take fright, though ghosts shall whisper to him by day and walk at his side by night. His brothers may sing to the echoing sky, proud lords of the universe, but he shall see with an unveiled eye, for that is Zucala's curse. He shall see that the world is fog and dust, blind destiny all that rules. The gold that he gains shall be as rust, and his brothers empty fools. Ambition shall be but a broken goad, hollow shall be his mirth. The pathway of ghosts shall be his road, and the wastelands of the earth. Empty shall be the cheers of hosts, though he win to all heights of power. For he is destined to walk with ghosts that is born in Zucala's hour. Oh, never mind, can't find it. I saw it. Right next. We'll get it.
Okay, I'm Jim Carter from Portland, Tennessee. I'm going to read Flaming Marble. I carved a woman out of marble when the walls of Athens echoed to my fame, and in the myrtle crown was shrined my name. I wrought with skill beyond all mortal kin. Into cold inhuman beauty then I breathed a touch of white and living flame. And from her pedestal she rose and came to snare the souls and rend the hearts of men. Without a soul, without a human heart, she shattered immortal love and mortal pride. And even I fell victim to my art. Bitter, joyless love I took my bride. And still with frozen hate that never dies, she sits and stares at me with icy eyes.
Oh, you gotta give it to the next person. Well, yeah, I could read something. Okay. No, I do.
Microphone's for it.
Can't see with my glasses on. So, this is the kissing of. My name is Lori Carter, and I'm from Portland, Tennessee, and I'm Jim's wife. There over there. You get the family show now. The kissing of Sal Snoobu. A bunch of the girls were whooping it up at the old Lipstick Saloon, and the kid at the piano player was twanging a jazzy tune, when out of the night, with perfume on his shirt and stay comb up on his hair, a young man staggered inside the door and meowed like a grizzly bear. He kicked the kid off the piano stool and sat him down to play. The piano yowled like an old tomcat to the tune of Hip Hooray! Says he, gal, you don't know me, but by gosh, I know you, and one of you is a classy dame. And that one is Sal Snoobu. She squawked, and somebody turned out the lights. Something went smack in the dark. There was nothing for anybody to do but to stand still and hark. somebody turn the lights on, and Sally was standing there. But the stranger wasn't. He was gone. And Sal was arranging her hair.
For those of you who don't know, Lori is a accomplished performer. Go to YouTube and check out Miss Melba Toast, and you will be highly entertained. Trust me.
Thank you.
I'm Bill Cavalier. I'm from Michigan City, Indiana, and I'm going to read Recompense. This is probably my favorite Howard poem, and Cimarron is probably my second. I have not heard lutes beckon me, nor the brazen bugles call, but once in the dim of a haunted lea, I heard the silence fall. I have not heard the regal drum, nor seen the flags unfurled, but I have watched the dragons come, fire-eyed across the world. I have not seen the horsemen fall before the hurtling host, but I have paced the silent hall, where each step waked a ghost. But I have not kissed the tiger feet of a strange-eyed golden god, but I have walked a city street where no man else had trod. I have not raised the canopies that shelter reveling kings, but I have fled from crimson eyes and black unearthly wings. I have not knelt outside the door to kiss a pallid queen, but I have seen a ghostly shore that no man else has seen. I have not seen the standard sweep from keep and castle wall, but I have seen a woman leap from a dragon's crimson stall. And I have heard strange surges boom that no man heard before, and seen a strange black city loom on a mystic night black shore. And I have felt the sudden blow of a nameless wind's cold breath, and watched the grisly pilgrims that walk the roads of death. And I have seen black valleys gape, abysses in the gloom, and I have fought the deathless ape that guards the doors of doom. I have not seen the face of Pan, nor mocked the dryad's haste, but I have trailed a dark-eyed man across a windy waste. I have not died as men may die, nor sinned as men have sinned, but I have reached a misty sky upon a granite wind. Boy, that's a good one. We'll get Rusty to read something here. Good. From memory.
Well, let's see if it works, okay? I'm Libby. I live in Greenville, Texas, and so much of Robert Howard's work was written from a man's perspective, so it's hard to read it. But I think so much of the feelings that he evokes are universal, and so this is one of my favorite ones. It's called Surrender. I will rise one day when the day is done and the stars begin to quiver. I'll follow the paths of the setting sun until I come to a dreaming river. I'm weary now of the word and the vow, of the winds and the winter weather. I'll reel through a few more years somehow, then I'll quit them altogether. I'll go to the girl that once I knew, and I will not swerve nor err. And I care not if she be false or true, for I am not true to her. Her eyes are moist, and her skin is brown, and her wild blood hotly races. But it's little I care if she doesn't frown at any man's embraces. Should I ask for more? Who have betrayed man, devil, God, and woman? Sorry, I missed the line there. Enough for me if she has for me a bamboo hut she'll share, and enough tequila to set me free from the ghosts that leer and stare. I'll lie all day a sodden sleep through days without name and number, with only the wind and the skies blue deep to haunt my unshaken slumber. And at night I'll lie in a star-roofed hut, forgetful and quiet-hearted, till she comes with her burning eyes half shut, and her red lips hot and parted. Oh, time has flown and the cup is full, and a man is blind from drinking. Time has flown and the cup is full, and a man is blind. Life is a lie that cuts like a knife, with sorrows and fading blisses. I'll go to a girl who asks not of life, save wine and a drunkard's kisses. No man may know my race or name, or my past, some ripe or rotten, till I follow the road by which I came, forgetting and soon forgotten. Sorry, I got a little flustered there.
Woo! Very nice.
Scarlet and gold are the stars tonight. Scarlet and gold are the stars tonight. The river runs silver below the bridge. But the hour shall come when the dawn grows bright over the eastern ridge. Your face is dim, white flower of night. In your arms unheaded the hours fall. But in the dawn makes hearts grow strange and light, and the far lands call.
Yeah, if nobody else comes up,
I'm Emma, and I'm from Utah.
Whoever comes out the front door reads the next poem.
Oh, is that the new rule?
I did threaten to come up again.
I need the book, actually. You gotta find it. Thank you.
All right, so can I borrow that once more?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Please pass it around.
Just real quick, flip over the one I need. That is. Thank you very much. All right, this is another one of my personal favorites from one of the few of his characters that Bob wrote poetry about. Good old Solomon Kane.
Oh yeah.
Homecoming. The One Black Stain. It's about Sir Thomas Doubting, executed at St. Julian's Bay, 1578, which a good portion of this is a true story, which not a lot of people talk about, but it is a very interesting moment. They carried him out on the barren sand where the rebel captains died, where the grim, gray, rotting gibbets stand, as Magellan reared them on the strand, and the gulls that haunt the lonesome land wail to the lonely tide. Drake faced them all like a lion at bay, with his lion head upflung. Dare ye my word of law defy, to say that this traitor shall not die? And his captains dared not meet his eye, but each man held his tongue. Solomon Kane stood forth alone, grim man of a somber race. Worthy of death he may well be, but the court ye held was a mockery. Ye hid your spite in a travesty where justice hid her face. More of the man had ye been, on deck your sword to cleanly draw, in forthright fury from its sheath, and openly cleave him to the teeth, rather than slink and hide beneath a hollow word of law. Hell rose in the eyes of Francis Drake. Puritan knave, swore he. Headsman, give him the axe instead. He shall strike off yon traitor's head. Solomon folded his arms and said, darkly and somberly, I am no slave for your butcher's work. Bind him with triple strands. Drake roared in wrath, and the men obeyed, hesitantly as men afraid. But Cain moved not as they took his blade and pinioned his iron hands. They bent the doomed man to his knees, the man who was to die. They saw his lips in a strange smile bend. One last long look they saw him send at Drake, his judge, and his one-time friend, who dared not meet his eye. The axe flashed silver in the sun, a red arch slashed the sand. A voice cried out as the head fell clear, and the watchers flinched in sudden fear, though 'twas but a seabird wheeling near above the lonely strand. "This be every traitor's end," Drake cried, and yet again. Slowly his captains turned and went, and the admiral's stare was elsewhere bent than where cold scorn with anger blent in the eyes of Solomon Kane. Night fell on the crawling raves, the admiral's door was closed. Solomon lay in the stenching hole, his irons clashed as the ship rolled, and his guard, grown weary and overbold, laid down his pike and dozed. He woke with a hand at his corded throat that gripped him like a vise. Trembling he yielded up the key, and the somber Puritan stood up free, his cold eyes gleaming murderously with the wrath that is slow to rise. Unseen to the admiral's cabin door went Solomon from the guard. Through the night and the silence of the ship, the guard's keen dagger in his grip, no man of the dull crew saw him slip in through the door unbarred. Drake at the table sat alone, his face sunk in his hands. He looked up as from sleeping, but his eyes were blank with weeping, as if he saw not creeping death's swiftly flowing sands. He reached for no hand, for gun or blade, to halt the hand of Cain, nor even seemed to hear or see, lost in black mists of memory. Love turned to hate and treachery, and bitter cankering pain. A moment Solomon Kane stood there, the dagger poised before, as a condor stoops above a bird, and Francis Drake spoke not nor stirred, and Kane went forth without a word, and closed the cabin door.
Yeah. Very good. I'm supposed to follow that.
I'll see if my memory cells can do, my memory cells are undusty enough for Reuben's Brethren, which is, it's subtitled with a unattributed quote, "Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel." Drain the cup while the ale is bright, brief truce to remorse and sorrow. I drink the health of my friend tonight, I may cut his throat tomorrow. Tonight I fling a curse in the cup for the foe whose lines we sundered. I may ride in his ranks when the sun comes up and die for the flag I plundered. Kisses I drank in the blaze of noon at eve may be bitter as scorning, and I go in the light of a mocking moon to the woman I cursed this morning. For deep in my soul the old gods brood, and I come of a restless breed, and my heart is blown with each drifting mood as clouds blow over the mead.
Jason, I think it's your turn.
Okay. It is my turn, huh? Thanks for going between me and Mr. Dramatic. Anybody read A Man yet? Nope. That is my favorite. Short and sweet and powerful. Jason from Bernie, Texas. Rug Blades Foundation. A man. I tore a pine from the mountain crag. I plunged it into the sea, and I wrote my name across the stars for all of eternity. I rocked the world with my chariots, I shook the seas with my pride, and at last I looked at my name in the stars, and I laid me down and died. The morns gave birth to the surging years, year rose on dying year, but ever above in the flaming stars my name stood blazing clear. And the people came and the people went, with their fetters and chains and bars, saying, I wonder what unknown man those strange words wrote on the stars. Thank you for letting me know.
Who's next?
Anyone read A Word from the Outer Dark?
Where'd Rusty Burke go?
My restless limbs still clutch at pens, still clutch at life.
Yes,
That one?
yes,
Yeah,
that one.
I don't remember my memory.
He ran that way.
Little poets sing of little things, small kings and puppet queens, lovers who kissed and then were made as one, and modest flowers waving in the sun. The mighty poets write in blood and tears and agony that flame-like bites and sears. They reach their mad blind hands into the night to plumb abysses dead to human sight, dragged from gulfs where lunacy lies curled, mad, monstrous nightmare shapes to blast the world.
Who's next? Somebody's got to be next. Come on. Charlie, what about you? Charlie.
I'll do my favorite. Get out of the way.
A special request. All right. Well, while you're waiting.
While you're waiting for somebody good. Little filler here.
Oh, no, you go right ahead and give me a chance to make sure I know this one.
Sure, it takes some fun out, but okay. Find it first.
Sure.
Charlie's ready.
No, I'm loud. Charlie Todd, Evansville, Indiana. Black Seas. I have heard black seas booming in the night on dim, uncharted shores beneath the stars, with reefs that never gleam to mortal sight and winds that never hasten man's spars. I waver on the threshold of my choice, O silver stars that gleam in oceans black, for through the night there sounds a nameless voice, who ride the dusky seas, they come not back.
Hello again, Ethan Sapatello from Saratoga Springs, New York. This one, well, literally just picked up this collection today, but I'm loving the poetry in here so far. This one is unfinished, but it's titled Adventure. Adventurer, I have followed your beck through the ages. I have sought no other lover. I have followed o'er land and sea, dim vale in your mystic moon mountains. I have heard Pan's pipes amid moon-dappled woodlands, and have seen the satyrs frolicking with wood nymphs upon the fragrant swards, while the night breezes murmured along among the leaves. I have watched your lateen feluccas aleap upon turquoise seas of morn. I have stood upon your snow-browed peaks and seen your lavender slopes of your brooding mountains stretching away to the amethyst skyline. I have heard the berg song of your arctic flows and have watched your northern lights flaring in godlike grandeur from the pole. I have sailed your seas. I have seen the boundless desert sands, all purple in sunset, spread to the brooding horizons. I have trod your nameless jungles, dared your turbid rivers, harked to the shadowy jungle where it brooded, bestial chin on midnight hand, like a sullen giant of darkness. I've seen your nameless mountains rise from the sea of tangled forest and stand like sightless, somber gods against the twilight. Adventurer, I desire no other lover. I have followed your ways about the world, and yet again, all the ages that have clanged to your stride may have known my step. My feet are dusty with the must of antiquity. My hands clutch the stars from their sockets. Adventure, you are wondrous with mystic beauty. Your tresses snare the stars, and you are dusky-breasted as Egyptian dawns. Your eyes are soft twin planets of mystic allure, speaking of all the wonders of all the eons. Your voice is as soft, as melodious as the harp of Arion, and there runs in haunting refrain 1,000 minor notes. The song of Circe is there, the whisper of the dawn winds. Thank you.
One of the coolest things about Robert E. Howard's poetry, it's a lot like his prose, where he wrote in so many different different genres. Just going through this little book here, here are some of the categories that he wrote in: Texas and the Old West, Wanderlust, Ancestral Echoes, Other Places, Ancient History, the Bible, Poems on Poetry, The Joy of Life, Humor, Love, the Times and World of Robert E. Howard, Self-Reflection, Boxing, Barbarism Ascendant, Heroic Verse, Scary Stuff, and Facing the End. Well, we all know how that worked out. but I'm going to read a boxing poem because they're borderline humorous, but I'm just going to read a boxing poem. I'm Bill Cavalier from Michigan City, by the way, as you may recall. This is called Fables for Little Folks. He was 6'4" and wide as a door, and he weighed 200 pounds. And he laughed as he spoke. I'll cool that bloke. I'll flatten him in 2 rounds. Ah, the crowd, they cheered, but the crowd, they jeered when his foeman stepped into the ring. They hissed and jowled, and the giant scowled and rushed with a roundhouse swing. Yes, he came full tilt, but the beans were spilt. For the smaller man timed him fair and knocked him out with a left-hand clout, and the crowd gave him the air. So the moral is this: make your foeman miss, and never lead with your right. But the first that you're to do is be sure that it's not Jack Dempsey you fight. Jack Dempsey was Howard's favorite boxer. Yeah, preaching to the choir, I know.
I got one more.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Okay. Gonna take a cue from Mr. Ellison over here and try to throw a little bit more energy into this. One thing you see other people doing, you realize you may not be as good as you think you may be at reading poetry.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I'm Ron Allen from Huntsville, Alabama. And I'm going to read, Solomon Kane is one of my favorite characters. And Return of Sir Richard Grenville. One slept beneath the branches dim, cloaked in the crawling mist, and Sir Richard Grenville came to him and plucked him by the wrist. No night wind shook the forest deep where the shadows of doom were spread. Solomon Kane woke up from sleep and looked upon the dead. He spake in wonder, not in fear. How walks a man who died? Friend of old times, what do ye here long fallen at my side? Rise up, Sir Richard said, the hounds of doom are free. The slayers come to take your head to hang on the juju tree. Swift feet press the jungle mud where the shadows are grim and stark, and naked men who pant for blood are racing through the dark. Solomon rose and bared his sword, and swift his tongue could tell, the dark spewed forth a pointed horde like the shadows out of hell. His pistols thundered in the night, and in that burst of flame he saw red eyes with hate alight, and on the figures came. His sword was like a cobra's stroke, and death hummed in its tune. His arm was steel and knotted oak beneath the rising moon. But by him sang another sword, and a great form roared and thrust, and dropped like leaves the screaming horde to writhe in the bloody dust. Silent as death their charge had been, silent as night they fled, and on the trampled glade had seen only the torn dead. And Solomon turned with outstretched hand and halted suddenly, for no man stood with naked brand beneath the moonlit tree.
Ooh, that's the scary stuff.
Solomon Kane's homecoming, come on.
I'm right here. Lead him to it.
Oh, it's what you got.
I have rules of etiquette here. My name is Lori Carter from Portland, Tennessee, and these are Robert E. Howard's rules of etiquette, in case y'all were wondering how to behave around here. Rule number 1, always be polite. If a girl stops you to talk while you're chasing your trains, and it looks like they're going to lose ye, just up with your musket and knock out her brains, saying, "Miss, you'll have to excuse me." Rule number 2, never be rude. If a tiresome guy should happen to call and stay without leaving at all, just heave him out the door on his dome, and maybe he'll just take the hint and go home. Rule number 3, Be considerate of ladies. Listen up, y'all. If you were going down the street and a pretty girl you chance to meet, don't hit her if she should you slight. A swiftish kick is more polite. Rule number 4, examples. There was a guy named McDoodles with a face like an Austrian poodle's. When folks said, "What a bees, you big piece of cheese," why, he'd wallop them all on their noodles. And number 5 is be courteous. When a tailor solicitor calls at your door, don't make him a greeting with your 44. Don't give him a scowl and a horrible gaze, or glare, and say, "You poor fish, you bum, take the air." He may be a bum and he may be a boob, but it's none of your business if he's even a rube. He's a human, although he may not look the part. Either give him some clothes or a good running start.
I guess I did get nominated.
Absolutely. I've got one when we're ready to quit. I've got one.
All right. Mind if I borrow that one last time?
Go right ahead.
All right. So, I'm Brad Ellison, and I guess reading Solomon Kane poetry is my game. So here is Solomon Kane's Homecoming. The white gulls wheeled above the cliffs, the air was slashed with foam. The long tides moaned along the strand when Solomon Kane came home. He walked in silence, strange and dazed, through the little Devon town. His gaze, like a ghost's, come back to life, roamed up the streets and down. The people followed wonderingly to mark his spectral stare, and in the tavern silently they thronged about him there. He heard as a man hears in a dream the worn old rafters creak, and Solomon lifted his drinking jack and spoke as a ghost might speak. There sat Sir Richard Grenville once, in smoke and flame he passed, and we were 1 to 53, but we gave them blast for blast. From crimson dawn to crimson dawn, we held the dawns at bay. The dead lay littered on our decks, our masts were shot away. We beat them back with broken blades till crimson ran the tide. Death thundered in the cannon smoke when Richard Grenville died. We should have blown her hull apart and sunk beneath the main. The people saw upon his wrists the scars of the racks of Spain. "Where's Bess?" said Solomon Kane. "Woe that I caused her tears. In the quiet churchyard by the sea she has slept these 7 years." The sea wind moaned at the window pane, and Solomon bowed his head. "Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. The fairest fade," he said. His eyes were mystical deep pools that drowned unearthly things, and Solomon lifted up his head and spoke of his wonderings. "Mine eyes have looked on sorcery in the dark and naked lands, horror born of the jungle gloom and death on the pathless sands. And I have known a deathless queen in a city old as death, where towering pyramids of skulls her glory witnesseth. Her kiss was like an adder's fang, with the sweetness Lilith had, and her red-eyed vassals howled for blood in that city of the mad. And I have slain a vampire shape that sucked a black king white, and I have roamed through grisly hills where dead men walked at night. And I have seen heads fall like fruit in the slaver's barracoon. And I have seen winged demons fly all naked in the moon. My feet are weary of wandering, and age comes on apace. I fain would dwell in Devon now, forever in my place." The howling of the ocean pack came whistling down the gale. and Solomon Kane threw up his head like a hound that sniffs a trail. Adown the wind like a running pack the hounds of the ocean bayed, and Solomon Kane rose up again and girt his Spanish blade. In his strange, cold eyes a vagrant gleam grew wayward and blind and bright, and Solomon put the people by and went into the night. A wild moon rode the wild white clouds, the waves in white crests flowed, when Solomon Kane went forth again, and no man knew his road. They glimpsed him etched against the moon, where clouds on hilltop thinned. They heard an eerie echoed call that whistled down the wind.
Thank you. Very nice. I usually do it, but I'm not hearing somebody else do it.